heat. Mixing non-stop. With the hottest DJ.
I'm your host, Joshua Diaz.
Non-stop.
There is no investigation. This boy has...
There is not, really? It is to me.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
But I have to put her on the side and worry about
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
There is no investigation. This boy
There
has...
is not, really? It is to me. Right. Idiot.
I've done my best. It's hard, that's real tough.
But I have to put her on the side and worry about the boys.
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for
What's
me
up?
and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
Excuse me, I'm reading. Live from the NBD Production Studios, you're in the lab with your host, Joshua Diaz.
There is no investigation.
Yes, you
This
are.
boy has...
There is not,
Yes,
really?
you are in
It
the
is to
lab.
me.
And by
But I
God,
have
it feels
put
good to be here.
her on the side and worry about the boys. But I have to.
Looking at you. Looking at you in chat.
There is
What's
no
up?
investigation.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
That, by the way, that rule is
But I have to put her.
the no F's and stuff. That
but I
rule
have to
is
put
so
her on the side and worry about the boys.
far gone when we do these call-in shows. And I do want to just hold on. I'm sorry, one of my monitors is glitching. Hold on. Of course. What I mean, and we're off to a rousing start. Thank you for being here. Anyway. What's going on, everybody? Josh from the lab, and you are in the lab. What a crazy day. Terrible, terrible day. With these horrific details coming out, and as soon as I read the probable cause affidavit, I knew that there was going to be controversy, that people were going to be curious, specifically as to why the roommate didn't call. We'll get into that later. So let's just, I made a little post about it, and we'll discuss that here in a bit, and we will be taking your calls here tonight. Hold on, let me intercom 4C Peyton.
Hello?
Yo.
Hello?
Hello.
I'm here.
Can you hear me?
I can hear you.
I got a monitor that's out. So, did you check the monitors before we started?
No.
Okay. Well, that's all right. Just make sure to. I hate doing this on the air,
Yeah.
Anyway, check the monitors when we're done. Thank you.
I got it.
All right. Sorry about that. Just a little tweaking needs to happen, here and there, and once again, that's what, he didn't have one job. He has several, and he did everything else pretty. But I said, test the monitors. Test the monitors. But that's okay. He'll handle it next time. He does well most of the time. So just wanted to get that out of the way. And Victoria, thank you so much. Let's see. It's great to be here tonight. Not just great, but Tony the Tiger, great. That's right. It is great. And it's always great to see you guys. So thank you so much for being here. Okay, so let's just get into it because there's a lot to get into. Now, the probable cause affidavit was released. It's about as detailed of probable cause affidavit. And I haven't read tons of them, but I've read several. And it's damning, to say the least. And it doesn't, I was under the impression that this guy was sort of smart. That Brian Koberger, and he is. He is smart for the most part. When it comes to doing papers and grading papers and whatever it is that he does, he's intelligent for, I would say, the most part. Now he's a complete psychopath. Look, that knife sheath or thing that they're talking about, the single source DNA, that's O.J. Simpson stuff, but except we're in 2023 now. Okay. I mean, single source. That means nobody stole it from him. That means nobody else was handling it. There's nobody else's DNA on the murder weapon. All it means is that he's the one that had it. His DNA is on it. Then you go, well, we have an eyewitness. You what? We have an eyewitness. Now here's where the train and the tracks start to come apart. Everything's good there, and we'll talk about the probable cause affidavit. But here's where it really, really starts to become even more curious. This, by all accounts, was not a quiet murder. It wasn't some quote-unquote thief in the night, some silent murder, as we had all sort of thought that it was. There's much more to it than that. Man, Josh didn't connect with the OJ source. Look, we could talk about OJ another time. OJ's evidence, the DNA evidence. I was actually looking at it the other day because I did a video on him, and so his evidence was overwhelmingly terrible. Meaning, it's just like they're saying, okay, the 99.99999% of the population can be ruled out. Those are some crazy numbers. Those are some crazy numbers, and thank God that's there. Now, let's go ahead and just take a listen, and then we will get into the probable cause affidavit. Also, taking your calls, and let's see, where's that? The call number is 858-299-2504. Let's go ahead and get into it here.
Up to death and/or imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes. Accused Idaho University killer, he gave one-word answers in a court hearing today. Police say DNA on a knife sheath matches Brian Koberger, the man you saw. Police released the probable cause affidavit of what they think happened inside a University of Idaho off-campus apartment, including the bizarre detail. that a roommate of the 4 victims saw a man in all black with a ski mask walking through the house after they heard crying, except they didn't call 911. They waited 8 hours to call 911. They found their roommates dead the next morning. Brian Enton is our man in Moscow, Idaho. He followed the alleged killer back from his family's home in Pennsylvania. Brian, good to see you. Thank you. I feel like we waited so long for the probable cause affidavit, and now we just have more questions.
We do have.
Oh, God, I wasn't ready for Brian. I wasn't ready for Brian this early. I haven't even watched this yet. And his question sucks, by the way. I absolutely, I understand. I really do understand why people want to know why she didn't call the police. I understand that question, but to just turn it into a circus is just, caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hey, how are you? Hi, Brett.
How are
everybody?
you?
So, good. How are you?
Doing fine, thank you.
I was wondering what do you think the probability of the suspect getting bond at the next court date?
Probably 0. With this kind of evidence, this probable cause affidavit, I mean, there's
him going across the country for one.
Yeah, there's no chance, in my personal opinion, that he gets any kind of bond, and nor should he.
Yeah, today at the court playback or whatever from his little appearance, he said that they would discuss it at a later date, but no bond as for now.
Right. Yeah, and I think the next appearance is the 12th. And
12th, yeah, December.
I don't know if is that a bond hearing. I don't know if that's a bond hearing or not, but
I think it's just like a basic.
Right. Yeah. Well,
but it's probable to discuss it.
He's not going anywhere until after the trial, and that's probably right back into prison. I mean, the evidence that was put out there today is damning.
What? Yeah, it's damning.
You know, not some
Okay, that's it.
I thought he was a criminal mastermind. He's not. He's dumb. But
he's not. He's not.
No, he's
simple
not.
mistake.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you. Have a good night, and I'm excited about the rest of the show.
Oh, thank you. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Hey, Josh, thank you so much for giving us the chance to call in.
Not a problem. Thank you.
And thank you for all your work on this.
Appreciate it.
I just watched the interview room tonight, too, and that was so informative. I guess, the thing I'm thoughtful about today when we have all this information is just keeping the families in mind and the victims in mind, because he's going to get so much attention, right? And I understand we're in a process here. But I know for myself, that's on my heart today. It's just what these families are going to go through in a lengthy trial. And I guess in my Barbie dream world, I wish he would plead guilty and we wouldn't have to go through that, or they wouldn't have to go through that, But I really love what you're saying, also just saying, there's lots of questions, but we actually got a lot of information. And I would just say for myself, I think we've learned a lot. I've learned a lot these last few weeks about how much we don't know. And I have faith that there's more to it that there isn't in this document that will explain a lot more of the circumstances with the roommate. And I think that we have to have faith in that. Do you know what I mean? Because if the LE hasn't identified anybody but him or anything like that, then I think we just have to have faith that there's more information we don't have yet, that they aren't sharing in this document,
Yeah, I wouldn't imagine that that was a very detailed probable cause affidavit, and I'm actually surprised at the amount of stuff that they put in there, but I believe that they have more. I don't think they're going to tip their hand on everything, but we got quite a bit of the crux of the investigation. Now, unfortunately, what happens when that takes place is that, people, by human nature, want to know more, and you know, it's hard to argue with that, but how much more are, you know, like people are saying, oh, I want to know why she didn't call the police, the victim, and you're going, well, I mean, yeah, I guess I can understand you wanting to know why, but she doesn't owe you an explanation. And it sounds like she was trying to save her own life, or she was petrified. Any answer, you know, that we get from her won't be accepted by a lot of people, especially the ones that are adamant about knowing. And for people to say things like, well, don't turn this into you know, you're gaslighting us. Why can't we ask that question? You can ask the question. That doesn't mean you're going to get an answer. And it certainly doesn't mean you're going to get an answer that you like. And, you know, nobody can speak. I said this to somebody earlier today. I used to say, like, when I would tell my grandpa something, I said, well, you know, what I would do, usually what I would do if I was that person, and he'd always say, never mind what you'd usually do, you know, because it wasn't you. Now, when it happens to you, then, you know, we'll have a conversation about it. But just because I would do something doesn't mean somebody else would do something. I really feel bad for this young girl.
I do too, because I'm just using we. I don't mean to be the royal we. The world learned today that there's a whole lot more going on that we know about, right? And there's a lot of details, even things that they likely didn't give us, like the actual timeline, stuff like that, because they were trying not to tip what they knew to the suspect, right? Alleged suspect. So I just have a feeling that there's a lot of stuff not in this document
for sure
that will clarify the timeline. Lots of stuff, right? And I mean, so again, there could be a whole bunch of things about when the 911 call was made and all of those details that they can't put in this document, right, in order to keep it for this trial process. I know I'm not saying this right, but you know what I mean.
I understand. And
also, these are kids. These are people that are in college. If I take myself to the Wayback Machine, what I was like at that age, I'm just saying, like, there is trauma, there is PTSD. I'm not saying there aren't questions, like we all have them, but I think that there should, we learned a lot this week that what we think is happening might not be at all what's going on. And, you know, a lot of the people that we all had questions about, you know, they're not in the forefront right now, right? Like the Jacks and all that. Like, so that I hope is a lesson to just, that we got to just stick with the journey on this and always keeping the victims and the families at the core of the story, not this guy or whomever, right? I mean, they're part of it, but the whole point of this are these people that aren't with us anymore, you know, these young people. So, but I love your show.
I appreciate that.
Your chat and everybody. Thanks for letting us call in. And I know it's a wild rodeo when you have call-ins, so just thanks.
Sometimes it is, but most of the time it's great, and I appreciate your phone call. Thank you so much.
Oh, yeah, man, you're the best. And I hope you also keep making your videos because I love your storytelling, the way that you look at things. And yeah, thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you very much.
All right, bye. Bye, Lab Chat and everybody.
Oh, she didn't get all of it. That was a very nice phone call, you know. I'm sure we'll broach that subject a little more.
Their roommate's dead the next morning.
Come on, Enton.
Is our man in Moscow, Idaho. He followed the alleged killer back from his family's home in Pennsylvania. Brian, good to see you. Thank you. I feel like we waited so long for the probable cause affidavit, and now we just have more questions.
We do have questions, but man, it was loaded full of information, 19 pages long, Leland. Perhaps the most jaw-dropping part of it is what you just mentioned, the fact that one of the roommates saw the killer. It was our understanding until today that both of the surviving roommates were asleep through the entire attack, but at least one of them was awake, heard screams, heard the dog barking, heard some talking upstairs, and then says she saw a man in a mask that covered his nose and mouth, described him as having bushy eyebrows, walk right by her. She says that she stood frozen in a shock phase and that she then saw him go out the back sliding door. That was sometime between 4 and 5 o'clock in the morning. And you mentioned it, Leland, they didn't call 911 until 11:58 a.m. So that was one big development today. Also, we learned really how they tracked down the accused killer. First of all, it was through the car, the white Hyundai Elantra. They got a description. Then they started pinging his cell phone, realized that he was around the house where the murders happened before and after the murders, and that he was around that house 12 times before the murders. And then finally, the nail in the coffin was DNA. They went out to his parents' house where he was around the holidays in Pennsylvania. They went into the trash, the FBI agents, they got something from the trash where they could match it up with the DNA, and they matched it up with the DNA that was on the knife sheath.
Which, by the way, is incredible police work. I mean, it's just absolutely incredible. Be Botanical. And I wanted to say also to Melissa, thank you for gifting 5 memberships. It's very, very generous of you. Thank you very much, and welcome all new members. Be Botanical says, I think she was asleep, then traumatized. Original report was someone was reported unconscious. Someone called police from one of the other roommates. Phone reported in the press conference. Thoughts? Well, my thoughts are, I can speculate all day long. I really have a hard... as soon as I read this part of it, I go, okay, well, this will probably end up dominating this situation. And unfortunately, it seems as though it definitely has. And, instead of, I'll tell you the stuff that I found just absolutely horrifying is, the roommate saying that she said she heard somebody say, oh, somebody's here. I'll help you. Walking right by the roommate downstairs. It's just the whole thing, there's so much. I get it. Why didn't she do what? I don't know, man. It's somebody insinuated earlier to me that it was such that she could, and this is, by the way, this is absolutely asinine, and there's no truth to this at all, or none that I can verify. Is it, well, what if she was cleaning up her drug paraphernalia? What if she was worried about that? And I'm just like, dude, it was such the dumbest stuff. This is just the dumbest stuff I've ever heard. Go ahead, caller. You're on the air.
Hi, Josh. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Okay. I called last week and I mentioned how curious I was. And here we are 7 days later. I'm not curious anymore. As a parent, as a parent, like they're focusing on this young girl. I just watched Fast Forward the TIR. All Billy had to show was that knife up close. And suddenly it became very real to me. And I thought, none of this mattered. Like all that other stuff, I'm done. I don't want the details anymore. Like I thought of those poor parents. The gruesome detail of this entire thing as a parent to lose a child like in such a brutal, they also use the word brutal. I couldn't find the word all along. I mean, the law enforcement was amazing. I mean, when they outlined what they did and how they found him and literally I think TIR said November 29th, I think they identified him, or around
somewhere around there, yeah.
I just remember thinking how curious I was, how kind of stunned about how it all went down. And now tonight I got most of the info on TIR, kept me up. And I thought, all I did was see the knife and thought, who needs one of those knives unless they're a hunter and they dress their own, or undress, I don't know what the word is. Like, I'm just done. Like, I know that sounds strange, but like, just fry them. I'm sorry. I mean, it's just brutal. As a parent, I couldn't function. I can't function right now because I'm visualizing too much, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that knife is a killing machine. That's what it's for.
Well, I mean, they've shown pictures but I hadn't seen anything up close almost and so detailed until the lawyer Billy said talked about it specifically.
Right.
And I went, oh my goodness, like honest to goodness, like I don't even know what to say. Like I can understand the girl freezing. I mean, in all those shows, if like trauma and freezing and what would you do? I mean, and we're talking about somebody that's, under 21. And I did catch what you wrote, right before I went to TIR. And I'm like, yeah, how would you, but you're right. They're putting a lot of focus on that. Like all of a sudden that's blown up.
Yeah.
I don't think that's the biggest story.
Not even close. It's not like she's not the security guard.
The brutalness. We knew it was brutal. There were leaks or rumors, but to actually have it laid out like that, and then to see that knife and explain what it actually does, I was like, those parents. I don't know how they get up every morning. Like I honestly feel that way.
Look, I 100% agree with you. I don't understand the fascination with I want to know why. I want to know why. And I put a post up earlier. Instantly, people were like,
"Who cares it for?"
I don't know. I really don't know. But let me just say this. And I've been in this position too. Like you're sitting there, you're watching TV, you hear a loud noise outside or somebody, something, and you're with somebody and you look and you go, "What was that?" I don't know. Go look. No, you go look. No.
Yeah. I ignore everything. I do. I don't
want to know what that was.
Nothing phases. Yeah, exactly.
I don't know.
I'm the same
Hindsight
way.
is 2020.
Everybody
sits on their
that's
pedestal.
definitely true. 2020. Everyone knows what they're gonna do
after the fact.
Except, again, how can we even put ourselves in their shoes? Like, never in a million years would I want to try to explain what I would do or what I think I would do. No, never. Never.
All right.
But wow, the law enforcement, wow. The FBI, the way, I don't know. And you know what I did, that Billy lawyer said? Because people have been saying in different chats, they say, remember, presumption of innocence. And he wrote, not for the general public, only as a trial court precept.
Exactly.
Did you notice? I love that comment.
I say that all the time. People say innocent until proven guilty.
Presumed innocent. And I've been so sick of seeing that, and I know it sounds terrible, but I'm like, FBI would not, all that work wouldn't have done it if they didn't have, yeah, you can talk about the innocent convicted, but I still know that's a small percentage, right, statistically, other things. So
yes.
They nailed him. They got him.
I believe
they got him with everything.
I believe so, too.
These parents may have known some of this, but I don't know. The more I agree with, I think the call, about a trial. I thought it would be fascinating to watch him, but now, not if you think of what the parents would hear.
Yeah, he sucks.
Yeah,
he's the worst.
Yeah,
that whole story about the pots and pans bothers me too.
Yeah. Oh, well, because again, you have it like it's the ex-aunt by ex-marriage, and then you hear the father was kind of difficult, and there's who knows what goes on behind closed doors. I am curious, I will say, as a former speech therapist, if he, what am I trying to say? If they studied him for a while for the goal, like the panel that Chris has had, to prevent this in the future, to get the right help. But I don't know. Like the brain illness, the brain disorder, and all the pieces that went into that when he was a little boy. To save maybe one kid, but I don't know if that's ever gonna make a difference, but that, I don't know, because he was someone's little boy, and I don't think it just started at birth,
Have you ever had a panic attack before?
Have I?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, years ago.
Yeah. Were you, was the first thing you did pick up your cell phone?
Okay, what am I missing?
I'm just saying, like, everybody's like, well, why didn't you do this? Imagine a panic attack on steroids. I mean, you're fearful for your life. People think they're going to die when they're having panic attacks. And I just, I'm just saying, like, everybody thinks that her wits were about her and all that stuff. But and I know you were on another lane, and I apologize about that. It just popped into my head.
Saying your lane. No, you're right. I mean, well, I have a favorite show, the SVU, and they always talk about no one knows how you'd react. They tell that to the victim. You don't know how, and that's fictional, but it's based on, what they tell people. So how could you even know? Why would you even want to know? Why do people think they know what they do? Unless you've had wisdom, experience, and been in those situations. And why would you want to know?
And I would have tried to be as quiet as possible.
I think, and like everyone said on like she saved her life. That's what, like she saved her life but she's a witness. And remember, there's a lot of talk about you never get witnesses to these murders, any murders like this. That's even actually that detail is really kind of freaky.
No doubt.
Because usually it's the entire house or whatever So I can't even imagine. Like, it's terrible that what happened. But now you have someone that survived this, that witnessed the person. I mean, oh my God, not enough drugs in the world.
Oh, wait, just wait till the trial when they put her up on the stand. Why didn't you do this? Why didn't you do that? And she's going to have to sit across from the guy that is accused of doing this. And she's going to get re-victimized all over again. And some asshole defense attorney is going to, try and crucify her.
Yeah. I don't think there's enough mental health in the world to help her if they go to trial.
Yeah.
Like, to get her through it's going to be for life. I don't know. And if I was her parents, I would just be like, oh my God, I'm just left. Like, it just, I don't know. The parenting is what's really hitting me after the knife and hearing those details in that affidavit. It's just like, it's just so brutal and unfair and just so sick. It really is.
Yeah.
Just put them away. Just do whatever you need. Study them for a couple of years and then off them. And I didn't decide what my opinion on the penalty until today.
Did you just say awesome?
In general. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, look.
I didn't want to say the whole thing because it's so controversial, but I don't know.
Oh, you mean ride the lightning or give him the needle or, whatever.
But imagine, think about the irony of his mother during the Ted Bundy execution, writing a brief, letter to the editor to the local paper against it. Think of the irony of the strange little coincidences. And now her only son, her baby, is a Ted Bundy, is accused of being an almost. That even freaks me out too. Imagine.
Yeah. No,
Did you hear about that?
Yeah, I did. I'm sure she's going to double down on that.
Yeah. Absolutely. Well,
so she's going to write a bunch more letters.
But those little details, and even the stops, I didn't believe the stops were planned. And then when it came out that they were, I'm like, wow.
Well, now they're saying that they weren't. The FBI is refuting that now, but which would make sense because you can't just pull people over, I guess. But
who knows? Remember, they kept so much close to the vest, and they didn't want it to get out. So maybe Indiana doesn't want that known because then they're going to complain about that. I don't know. I don't know. I just find that after a couple of things tonight, I was just like, you know what? And I can't look at that mugshot, the original mugshot, and what did you call this anymore? I actually closed my eyes. I refuse to look at his picture because it's just too freak. I'm just done.
Yeah. Well,
and I know I sound frivolous, but I'm not being frivolous. I'm overloaded. That was enough information tonight on TIR to make me think, you know what? It's all about the victims. It's all about the families. I don't care anymore about what goes forward. I mean, I'll keep up to date, but I've lost my curiosity. How's that? Is that a better word? Yeah.
I mean,
it's not. It's just too sad and brutal, in my opinion.
I 100%
and I'm
agree
a true crime buff. This is overload. This is I think someone wrote it in chat. It was the worst crime that they've ever heard of in, whatever, so many years. And that's how I feel. We just got all this information in a time when now we have all this information and like the digital footprints and literally a footprint and the witness that now it's like, okay, I think that's enough. Like I now know what happened, who did it, and I'm done.
Well, I understand that, and I appreciate your call too. I know it is a bit much. Trust me.
Well, have a good night, and thanks for hosting everybody and keeping us up to date on everything.
Thank you so much for calling. Bye-bye. Great calls. So I'm sure somebody's going to fight with me at some point. Caller, go ahead. You're on the air.
Good evening, Josh. How are you today?
I'm fine. How are you?
I'm doing good. How's the weather?
Slowly getting better. I don't know. It's all right. It's just raining. Okay. No wind so far. I mean, there was wind yesterday, but today, not so much.
Some normal rain. Well, that's good to hear. Yeah, what a day. Gosh, I have so much on my mind, and listening to your last caller, I feel the same way. Like, definitely overload today. So many things running through your head, and yeah.
Are you on? Let me just add. Are you on speakerphone?
No, can you not hear me well?
No, I can. It just sounds like you're kind of under, like I would be underwater.
Oh, okay. Can you hear me better now?
No. No,
okay, hold on. Let me fix this.
Okay.
If you can hear me, I'll still talk, and then I'll get you on the...
Yeah, I can hear you. It's just kind of like, it's just like a pillow.
Is this better?
Yeah, certainly is. Thank you.
Okay, good. You were in my ear. Sorry.
Okay, that makes sense.
Okay. So, yeah, a few things. Definitely thinking about the roommate, and I can't imagine like what she's going through right now. And now she's like on blast. You've got our national coverage. People keep bringing it up, and gosh, I just really feel for her. And hopefully, through this process, she's got the support with family or some sort of therapist to kind of help her get through this. I can't even imagine what kind of. Yeah, I don't even know. I feel like it's going to last her a lifetime. But I understand the freeze because if I'm scared of something in my house, like sometimes you just get scared, you hear something, I tend to freeze myself. And that is a mortifying feeling. You like literally can't move. So I have, empathy for what she was going through in that moment. And I hope other people can realize that, you as we've said before, you don't know what you would do in that situation.
No, I mean, I have no earthly idea. And here's the other thing. I don't want to know. I mean, I really don't.
No.
I've had bad enough stuff happen in my life to where I'm good on the exact details. And this is like, we will all, as an audience and as people who pay attention to this stuff, we will all move on from this case at some point. And she will not. These families will not. They're going to deal with this for the rest of their lives. This is a life crime times 4, and then whatever. I don't know what's going to happen with Kohberger and his dad and his mom. I'm reserving judgment on all of that because I don't know them. I don't know anything about them. All I know is what I've been told about Kohberger and his actions and the probable cause affidavit, a very strong case against him. And I still truly think that he thinks that he's going to weasel out of this somehow. But, I think I was overestimating him. I really think, you look at his education and you go, oh, wow, yeah, like, guy's smart guy. And then you're going, he left what there? He drove his own car. It was a terribly sloppy crime scene, as has been said before. There's no way to do it the way that he did it, and to be clean about it. None. And another terrifying fact is that it wasn't quiet at all.
Yeah.
I mean, that
came out of left field. Yeah. Like, I mean, obviously you would think it would not be quiet, but to hear the details, it's just like really heavy on your heart, you know? So on that note, I think everyone listening, just if we could all send prayers, thoughts, goodwill, and energy towards those families and the victims, and just, you know, have a moment in our hearts where we say, hey, like, you know, I know that's why we're all here, but I believe in the power of, like, you know.
And I called the dog dumb, like that
energy.
Dog. Remember that? I don't know if you remember when I said that breed of dog was dumb. That dog was barking. So I take that back. Poor dog.
Yeah, man. Like, even that, you know, like, all those things that just really kind of makes it more real. Yeah, no.
It's just so weird. Like, the dog was in distress, and the house was in distress. The whole thing wasn't quiet at all, and that's so.
It's weird.
So crazy to me.
Go ahead.
No, that's it.
Yeah. I was gonna say, I think it's just weird that, like, nobody felt the need to call 911 for that long.
Yeah, I'm not even, like, I don't even disagree with that, and I think it's a fair question, but I also think it's a question that no matter the answer, nobody's gonna, you know, it's just gonna be what she says. I mean, we'd have to basically just. You know, the whole fact that people are saying, well, maybe she was cleaning up drugs, or maybe she went back to sleep. She went night, whatever. It's just like, so where are we headed with this question? Are we headed, oh, she was in on the crime? Are we headed on she's responsible for those deaths? Because I'll tell you what, I read the probable cause affidavit, and I didn't see anywhere where it implicated her as being a part of anything other than being a victim of an intruder in her home who was scared to death. That's all I saw.
Right. Yeah, absolutely. And when I said that, I meant generally, like, maybe not just her, because obviously, you know, there was noise outside, but I don't know. I mean, I guess in some way I get that too, because I've been in situations where, you know, you'll hear someone's dog barking in your neighborhood, or if it's somewhere where it's normally, you know, there's normally sounds, you're not thinking like, oh, I better call the cops. Sometimes I might think that, I don't know, and then I'm like, should I? And then, you know, like, kids screaming in the neighborhood, like, kids just scream sometimes, and you're just like, well, where do you know, make that call?
My trash cans got knocked over by a skunk the other night. Me and Ronell and I looked at each other and said, what was that? And I said, I don't know. Go look. And I said, no way.
Yeah, sometimes you just, you're like, nope, I'm just going to hope that that's nothing terrifying.
I'm not going to look. It's the middle of the night. Yeah.
No
now,
way.
I know that's different than seeing, you know, but you've seen sketchy people walk through your neighborhood before, and now this is all totally different. Somebody in your house. And by the way, this was a communal house. Okay. So she wasn't the only one that lived there. I would imagine that, you know, I don't know. It's just really hard to fathom what was going through her mind, because I'm not her. She's not me. She's not anybody else besides her. And she's the one that experienced it. And I'll be damned if I really entertain the idea of people saying, well, why? Why didn't she? I need to know.
Right.
Like, do you?
No.
The cops need to know.
And I think if anything,
That's it.
But I think if anything, it's awful, as you said, her being re-victimized on the stand, and I don't know if there's any way that they could get around that, because I think that's awful that she's going to have to go through that on top of what she already went through.
It's going to be vital to their case.
Yeah, no, you're right. You're right.
And I hate that she's going to have to do it, but I mean, it's just going to have to happen, you know.
Absolutely.
But
so
I just,
hope the people that question. Go ahead.
She can be, here's the thing. She can be a hero now for her friends.
Yeah.
And I think that that's what's going to happen. And I think, you know, I pray that she gets the strength and the courage and the support to nail this guy to the jail floor or the prison floor where he'll never leave again. And I think that with all of this criticism, with all of this, whatever she's going through, her traumatic experience, everything that she's experiencing, she can put his ass away and help get justice for the victims and her friends. And
that's a good way to look at it.
I'm rooting for her because I know that the defense is going to come after her, and she just has to somehow, some way, and I don't know how she'll do it. I have no idea. But I think when the time comes that she'll be ready.
Yeah, and I'm hoping that, like, in some way, like you saying that, I'm hoping that in some way doing that for her friends and, you know, being able to hold him accountable will hopefully bring her some sort of closure, because I can only imagine, like, I can't, I don't want to, but the guilt that she's probably feeling at this point too is like, I just, that's so heavy. But I hope that, you know, you can only hope that will bring her some form of closure, which obviously won't bring a lot, I'm sure, but that's a very big deal. Like, I really like the way that you put that she can be that hero. She can hold him accountable and say, like, you're not going to get away with this, you know.
She can take back the power. She can give some justice to this situation, and she could stand up in court and say, yeah, that's him. Walk right by me after he
right.
killed
And nobody
my four
should,
friends.
Nobody should be blaming her for what she did or didn't do, because she didn't cause that, you know. She just, her instinct, her body did what it did. I don't know, but definitely shouldn't be blamed. But since I have you on the phone, there was one other thing that kind of stuck out to me, and it kind of made me think about the parents of Brian Kohberger, because they found the sheet and they were describing what was on it, and it had to do with the Marines. And I started thinking about that, and I'm like, okay, well, where did this kid get this knife with the Marines stamp or whatever emblem on the sheet? I'm wondering if his dad was in the Marines, and then I think that would be very telling if his dad knows he has that, hey, actually, my kid did this, you know?
I think that you can buy this knife off of, like, the K-Bar website.
Okay, and it would have the same emblem and stuff. Is that the way that?
Yeah, because that's what it's the Marine style knife. They don't. So.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
okay.
You can buy those knives. I mean, and they're not cheap. I mean, they're like $150, $160. They're not cheap knives at all. But they're meant to do one thing and one thing only. You know, it's not to skin potatoes. I'll tell you that.
No.
That thing's a gnarly weapon. The way those things are designed is like, you just look at it and you go, oh, that's just that's just a knife. Like, well, yeah, sorta. I mean, it's that thing is a killing machine, unfortunately.
No, I'm pretty sure if I saw that thing in person, I would get like a knot in my stomach.
That's
like,
a gnarly
I'm
knife, yeah.
kind of terrified. Yeah, like, you would look at that and be like, get that away from me.
Yeah, it's not like a serrated knife or anything. I mean, that thing cuts through most things. Like, it would look like hot butter. It would just be insane. That thing is completely sharp and scary and all of that. But well, I appreciate your phone calls. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for teaching me about those knives, because I really didn't know that much. So I'm glad I brought it up.
Terrifying.
Yep. All right. Well, thanks for your empathy and your humanity and keeping the show like human.
I
love it.
appreciate
Thank
that.
you.
Thank you.
All right. Good night.
All right, we'll take a couple more calls and then caller, go ahead. You're on
Hello.
the air. Hi.
Hi. This is Lauren Dillon here, and I had a thought about Dylan and why she may not have why she reacted the way she did. And it reminds me of when I was kind of in that similar age range. Set the scene. My best friend hung himself. And on this particular day, I had been to the funeral and spent time with friends and went for ice cream with my best friend, other best friend. And so I was returning home after leaving the restaurant, and I pull off of the big, huge road that we lived off of onto the narrow side street, and there's this body on the sidewalk. And I'm going, am I seeing what I think I am, or is this a hysterical reaction that I'm having? And so I go in the house, and I call 911, and I say, there's a body on the sidewalk. And says, well, is it alive? And I said, I don't know. I'm too freaked out to go check. And it turns out it was somebody who was drunk and passed out on the street. I thought maybe it was somebody who had been hit on the street and got thrown onto our little side street. But, it could be that it would have been cold enough at night that he could have possibly died of hypothermia if, somebody hadn't called. But I was pretty freaked out because of, being to the funeral of my very good friend, and she opens the door. She sees this guy all dressed in black, got a mask on. He's probably got blood all over him. He probably has an odor because of all of the intense hormones and so forth, adrenaline and so forth. I understand they kind of have an odor, and you've got the odor of the blood and everything. She takes a look at him, and she probably was just thoroughly freaked out. And I wouldn't be surprised if she did something like she went, my mind is playing tricks on me. She takes some drugs or something to self-medicate and figures that, when I wake up, it'll all be over and so forth. And lo and behold, it's not.
Yeah, I mean,
And,
I think that the possibilities here are endless, and all of them to me end with fear and crippling anxiety and not knowing what to do in that situation. To say that she knew what had happened upstairs just wouldn't be right. I mean, we don't know that.
Well, I think that her brain probably just shut down on her, so that it's more than would register. And I'm not going to knock her. I've heard some people who've been rather critical of her, and she's implicated and so forth. And I'm going, no, you don't know what it would be like to be in that situation.
But everybody, well, not everybody, because most people here and other places as well are empathetic to what's going on. But see, the problem is everybody that wants to know and wants an answer almost wants it to be nefarious. They want something out of it, like, oh, she was either in on it, or she was cleaning up a meth lab, or like just a bunch of dumb things, and when it could literally be nothing more with she's terrified, she's not really sure what happened, maybe she was just trying to avoid him or whatever, but people want it to be something more nefarious. Not everybody, but some people.
Yeah, Meanwhile, back on the subject of the K-bar knife, I pulled up the knife on Google, and you can buy them for as low as $39.99. You know, the Marine version on eBay. You can buy them at Shea's. You can buy them all over the place.
Yeah, for sure.
You
Big
know,
Five.
so
all kinds of stuff.
It's not a hard thing, you know, that somebody's going to have special contacts in order to get one of these. So.
Right. No, you're 100%
fact, here's
right.
one for $34. Here's one for only $35.
Yeah.
So,
yeah,
okay,
they're terrible knives.
Yeah, well, I'll go back to listening. So.
Thank you so much for calling.
All right. Okay, bye-bye.
Crown Royal says, let's see, she knew something was going on for her to look out the door 3 times. You would think she would have at least called one of them to see if everything was all right. Yeah. I mean, what do you want? I don't know what you want me to say. You would think that somebody wouldn't come into your house and kill 4 of your roommates and you know, put you in harm's way as well. But, you know, you would think, never mind what you think, right? I don't know. I find it just a weird question. You would think this, you would think that. You would never think that you're going to be in this situation. Seriously, it drives me nuts. What the hell are we talking about here? My God. Oh. Okay. Calm down. Calm down, Josh. Sorry.
Yeah, to be fair, for all the criticism of the police there, as we read this, it seems as though they did a pretty incredible job piecing this together. Brian, I want to keep you as part of the conversation. Also bring in Greg McCary, FBI agent for over 20 years who worked in the behavioral science unit. Greg, this just continues to trouble me as soon as I read it. You've got a witness who says, I heard dog barking, I heard screaming, there was crying, and then I see a man in a ski mask with bushy eyebrows dressed in all black walking out of the house in this dazed stare, and I just go back to sleep?
Well, welcome to the world of law enforcement. We have to play the hands we're dealt, and unfortunately, not everything works out as we would like it. Obviously, you'd like the call right away. So you can have an immediate response and get on it. But unfortunately, we don't live in an ideal world, and that's what happened. For whatever reason, I have no idea.
You know, I guess at the same time, though, it makes you sort of wonder about the rest of the case. In other words, if there's more here. You worked in behavioral sciences, which is also sort of the idea of profiling. Koberger, 28 years old, grad student in criminology at a university not far away from the murder site. He was arrested in Pennsylvania back near his parents' house, charged with 4 counts of first-degree murder, 1 count of felony burglary. From everything you've seen in the case of the probable cause affidavit and what we match it up with Koberger, does it fit the profile, no pun intended?
Yeah, it is pretty typical in a way that, again, homicidal violence is typically by males in their 20s, and that's what we have here. You have a criminally inexperienced guy. I mean, he has some academic training, which doesn't create a killer, but it gives him some information. He had made a feeble attempt, I think, to conceal him being at the crime scene by turning off the cell phone. But of course, his car is caught around the area. And the cell phone isn't pinging anywhere else, interestingly enough, during the time frame. And we've got his DNA at the scene, or what appears to be, and certainly they.
And the person that said that I'm a cop lover, next time you need to call the cops, don't do it. Figure it out for yourself.
DNA from him, so they'll get a direct match. I assume so here in the near future.
Thanks for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on.
That was extremely uneventful. Let me see here. Okay, I think this is the sidebar. I like
Great to have you
sidebar.
both on. Phil, I am going to start with you.
Oh, yeah, Phil, baby. Phil's in the house. Love Phil.
For this offense, do you understand these rights?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm a
I'm
cop
not
lover.
gonna
I
go
love
over
him
the criminal complaint
so
with
much.
We go over the 5
cops.
biggest revelations from the newly unsealed probable cause affidavit in the University of Idaho murder case. I'm joined by my co-host Anjanette Levy and legendary former homicide detective Phil Waters. Welcome to Sidebar, presented by Law and Crime. I'm Jesse Weber.
And again, the maximum penalty for this offense, if you plead guilty or are found guilty, is up to death and imprisonment for life. Do you understand?
Yes.
Well, I will tell you that I was not expecting this amount of detail in the probable cause affidavit. This was an affidavit from Moscow police officer Brett Payne in support of an arrest warrant of Brian Kohberger. Now, Kohberger has officially been extradited back to Idaho after his arrest in Pennsylvania. He now faces 4 counts of first-degree murder and burglary for allegedly stabbing to death University of Idaho students Madison Mogen, Zoner Kernodle, Ethan Chapin, and Kaylee Gonsalves inside of their off-campus home. Their bodies were found on November 13th of last year. Kohberger has had his initial appearance in Idaho court. No bail was set. He was read the charges. He's due back in court January 12th for a status hearing that would precede a preliminary hearing. But we have to talk about this probable cause affidavit. 19 pages. It has been released. And wow. Just wow. Let me bring in my co-host here on Sidebar and
I'm so
correspondent
excited
for the Law and Crime Network, and
Phil is like the best.
Jeanette Levy, who's live in Idaho right now. And we also have with us legendary former homicide investigator Phil Waters, who's been following this case from the very beginning. It's great to have you both on. Phil, I am going to start with you. You called it.
And the type of knife that they're talking about is the United States Marine Corps K-bar.
Great, he's got one too.
So when I saw this, my
everybody's got this knife apparently.
Thought is this person prior military? So the specific weapon, if they're talking about a K-bar, which is what this is, then there's a possibility that they need to look into military background of some kind.
You called it. We asked you about a month ago about the murder weapon, which hasn't been recovered, and you pretty much nailed it because this is from the affidavit. As I entered this bedroom, I could see 2 females in the single bed in the room. Both Gonsalves and Mogen were deceased with visible stab wounds. I also later noticed what appeared to be a tan leather knife sheath laying on the bed next to Mogen's right side. The sheath was later processed and had K-bar US.
The only difference between like him having one and Billy having one is that like these people are good humans and, have been in law enforcement and military and, genuinely need them. Biba Tanner, you're so nice. Thank you so much.
And the United States Marine Corps Eagle Globe and anchor insignia stamped on the outside of it. The Idaho State Lab later located a single source of male DNA left on the button snap of the knife sheath. Phil, what do you think?
Well, I tell you, I don't know that I nailed it. The first part of that was a K-bar was what they talked about at the very beginning. Very specific about it being a K-bar. And 1 + 1 still equals 2. So
look at that photo. KDK, I'm really not gonna be a jerk here, but your comments keep getting deleted for a reason. And it says, I can't imagine Dylan not needing to urinate for 8 hours after drinking that night. Who cares what you can't imagine? You don't know anything. You don't know. You don't know. So who cares?
Surmise. In fact, I think when we first talked about this, I showed you the K-bar that I have in that same type of sheath sitting in my office at my home. So I just think it's interesting that as brilliant as he has been portrayed to be, that he has left that piece of evidence behind at the scene.
And that's what we talk about, the suspect who has this, studying criminology and an interest in police to leave allegedly such an important piece of evidence just makes no sense. And Jeanette, we don't know where he allegedly got this weapon from or how it was obtained. And not only that, can you also tell us the significance of the DNA on that sheath and how they were able to match it back to Koberger.
What up, Don?
Well, it's incredibly
What's up, Don B?
significant because the affidavit says that the DNA came from a single male contributor, and they were able to determine that it came from Brian Koberger. But the way they were able to determine that, according to the affidavit, was through going through his father's trash at the home in Albrightsville, Pennsylvania, where Brian Koberger was later arrested. And it said that it was like a 99.99998% match or something.
So I can't imagine her not having to go pee for 8 hours. My first thought is, wow, I wonder what kind of bladder control she has that she didn't do. I mean, seriously? That's your thought? Good one. Smart. Yeah, smart.
Some crazy.
I mean, yeah, fine. If that's what you if that's the way your brain works.
Percentage likely to be the son of, Michael Koberger. So there's been a lot of
Crown Royal can kiss my ass too. Oh, your channel's not for me. That's good.
Discussion and reporting out there that this happened through genetic genealogy, that they were able to get the dad's DNA through that. And so we're thinking maybe that's likely true, since it discussed that in the probable cause affidavit. They went through the trash, got some items of DNA from that trash, and were able to make an identification and link things together through there.
And Anjanette, just real quick follow-up. We don't know if, where the knife was purchased. I know there was talk about whether or not Koberger's father was former military, but nothing like that. We don't have any indication, right?
We have no indication of that. One of our viewers asked a question about that, whether or not maybe his father had once been in the military. But, this is the type of thing where you could probably find this online or the pawn shop, what have you. They may be, out there floating around.
Okay, so now, Phil, I want to bring your attention to this, because later on in the affidavit, they said a short time later, DM, who, by the way, is the roommate. It was one of the two roommates on the ground.
Jess, you better not let me down on this, dude, because I'm going to go on Twitter later. If you do, if you let me down, I don't think you will. I don't think I don't think you'll let me down on this, and I know Phil won't let me down on this, and I know that McDonough didn't let me down on this, and I know Billy Little didn't let me down on this, and I know Crown Royal did, and then that Misty, whatever the frig her name was, she's apparently a urologist, or what do they call those? Is it a urologist?
Floor, a surviving roommate. I use that word interestingly because this is what she said. In the affidavit, she said that she heard, or she thought that she heard, was Gonsalves say something to the effect of, "There's someone here." DM stated that she looked out of her bedroom but did not see anything when she heard the comment about someone being in the house. DM said that she opened the door a second time when she heard what she thought was crying coming from Kernodle's room. DM then
people cry.
Then said that she heard a male voice say something to the effect of, "It's okay, I'm going to help you." DM opened her door.
By the way, that's absolutely terrifying. That is such a terror. So it could have that could have came from obviously Ethan or Buttburger, and the thing about that is, like, they mean totally different things. Both of them are scary. One is, obviously loving and caring, and the other one is mocking and psychotic.
For the third time after she heard the crying and saw a figure clad in black clothing and a mask that covered the person's mouth and nose walking towards her. DM described the figure as 5'10" or taller, male.
Oh, look at Lurch.
Not very muscular, but athletically built with bushy eyebrows. The male walked past DM as she stood in a frozen shock phase. The male walked towards the back sliding glass door. DM locked herself in her room after seeing the male. She said she did not recognize the male, and this leads investigators to believe that the murderer left the scene.
Which is sort of, in my opinion, I mean, that's some sort of guilt that shows evidence of guilt to me. I mean,
we had no idea this happened. Phil, what's your reaction to that?
I think that is just good police work in terms of what was released at the beginning of this thing. We were told at the beginning that the roommates on the first floor heard nothing, and there were a lot of pundits, a lot of people offering their opinions that was just amazing, that couldn't have happened, and this and so forth and so on, as though that was supposed to be revealed at that time. And I think, I don't know this for certain, but my reading of that would be that was done for the protection of those witnesses and did not want to let anyone know that they had, in fact, seen more than what was conveyed in that initial press release.
Phil, does it make it odd that if this is true, why wouldn't he have killed her? And the second question is, why did she not immediately make a phone call? We know that a phone
All right, Phil, come on now. Don't let me down.
Call was made from that residence, either from her or the other roommate, at almost noon the next day. What's your response to people who are questioning this?
Well, people do different things under stress. And while it's detailed in the affidavit that she saw these things, we don't know that he saw anything. He's moving around in the dark. He's got this mask over his nose and his mouth.
I was kind of wondering that too. Did he see her?
He's already done what he's going to do, or he's on his way to do it. He's already focused on where he's headed and whether it's to leave. And apparently it's to leave the structure. So he's not getting distracted with things going on around him. And remember, it's dark in there. So there's certainly, what it indicates to me is that he didn't see her. She saw him, which was certainly to her benefit.
Yeah, and there's also, like you said, how do you judge somebody in that position?
I love you, Phil.
For what they did.
I love you,
she
Jesse.
Froze, maybe she panicked. And Jeanette, I got to talk to you.
Yeah, and just
I'll give you a final word on that.
To address.
It's funny because I've noticed that smart people kind of go this route and dumb people go the other way.
The lack of a
Crown Royal. Anybody that has their name as Crown Royal, you're not winning in life, are you?
At that point in time, she locked the door.
Let me name myself after a really cheap alcohol and then question why people do what they do. You're a cop lover. Your channel's not for me.
And she was away from it, and she saw the guy leave. So maybe she thought at that point, he's gone. I'm locked in, and we're done here, not having any idea what had actually happened.
Of course.
And Jeanette, I got to go to some of the biggest piece of evidence. I mean, how did they track him, right? We talked about the DNA. The cell phone evidence I find to be so crucial. Can you briefly summarize for our listeners and our viewers the significance of the cell phone evidence?
Matter of fact, when I was creating this channel, I was thinking, I want somebody that names themselves after a mid-level, alcohol, and that likes to question victims and, things like that. And I'm really devastated because this channel was for you. I created this channel for people like you. And I failed you, Crown Royal.
The cell phone evidence is incredibly significant. And one of the key pieces there is the fact that his cell phone pinged off of a tower on the night of the murders at certain points in time. But during a period of time in that window, there's no signal from this cell phone. And I think that's really interesting.
Oh my
and
God.
It doesn't
Look at that photo. Look at that photo. I think it's terrifying.
Come back on. That cell phone doesn't start pinging against a tower again until after police believe the homicides were committed. Also, that cell phone evidence, according to the affidavit, shows that he was in the area of that home on at least 12 occasions between August and November 13th. That August stop one of the instances in which his phone was determined to be in that area.
Yeah, it's funny that you say that, Janet, because I think I just blocked somebody the other day for what was it? Their name was Milwaukee's Best or something like that, and then Pabst Blue Ribbon. I had to block them too.
Of the King Road house was on August 21st of that year. He was pulled over at 11:40 p.m. Near the house for a seatbelt violation, and that's a Sunday night. So you would think a PhD student, if it was indeed him and his phone in this area, remember he's maintaining his evidence.
Oh, you're still here?
Why is he out and
Welcome
about
to
at
stay.
11:40 p.m. at night? So the cell phone evidence in this case, I think, is very significant. I don't think you can hang your hat on it entirely. It's just another kind of piece of the mosaic that is going to, paint this picture that they kept talking about. Law enforcement kept saying they were getting new pieces of information that really painted a picture of what happened that night. And I think it's just another piece of the puzzle or that picture.
Yeah, so there was a question about if he was stalking the victims. Well, as we said, 12 times before this night, they have the cell phone in this key location, by the house. And as you mentioned, his cell phone turns off during the time of the murders and then comes back on right afterwards. So that's significant. Phil, we talk about how this guy, the suspect is a criminology student, has this interest in criminology, and yet leaving this breadcrumb of trails. The cell phone evidence is one thing. Phil, let's talk about the car itself, the white Hyundai Elantra, which we were all on the search for, because based on this affidavit, to give everybody an idea about the car, there were cameras tracking the car's movement for a long time. And there was even one surveillance video where they see him exit the car. So we know that it belongs to him. We know it's registered to him. They have this car leaving WSU at 2:44 in the morning on the night of the murders. It makes its way to Moscow. It initially makes passes of the house in the early morning hours. It enters the area at 4:04 a.m. and then drives fast from that crime scene at 4:20 a.m. and then is back in Washington at 5:25 a.m. Again, what is your reaction to the way police were able to track him?
Just good old-fashioned detective work. I said from the beginning that that's what's going to crack this case.
Phil's a lovely man.
And that's what they did. These guys hit the grindstone and put their noses to it. And one of the first things they're going to do, and we talked about this before, Jesse, is that they're going to go out there and they're going to try to draw from any kind of video surveillance evidence that they can draw from. And that's exactly what they did. In reference to the cell phone, I guess he was brilliant enough to turn it off when he was in there doing what he was allegedly doing. But he wasn't smart enough or didn't think about the fact that he needed to turn it off the entire time that he's making his reconnaissance.
The funny thing is, I'm so petty about, my show. What I mean by that is, my audience, because obviously, I love the audience that we have. We have a great audience. And, I get petty if I see, people that are in my chat, in somebody else's chat, who thought it was cool to say that he was happy that my mother died. That infuriates me. And I'm certainly not going to let people, take pop shots at these kind of victims, and it's just weird. My show is not for everybody. It's actually for people that actually care and aren't, weirdos.
Of that structure and those people.
Angie, we got about a minute. I want to really briefly talk about this because I thought this was another big revelation. We learned some background history on the defendant as well, didn't we? We learned about his interest in criminology. I know there was a Reddit post that was interesting as well. Can you tell our viewers, our listeners, what we learned about his interest and background?
I think it's really interesting about the Reddit post that he, they cited that in the affidavit, because that is one of the first things we found when we started looking for information after we learned his name last Friday. And it was a survey that had been posted asking for criminals to respond, or people who had committed crimes to talk about their emotions. And I found that to be really interesting, that the police found that was worth mentioning.
By the way, this same dude that some people in my chat watch that also are members of posted today that, things are going to get juicy now. Seriously, a loser.
In the probable cause affidavit. And I want to know why they felt that was important, talking about the emotions that people feel, what they're trying to get at when they put that in the probable cause affidavit. Obviously, criminology. We know that he was a PhD student studying that. We know from talking to students at DeSales University, he had taken undergraduate classes, one taught by Catherine Ramsland, who specializes in serial killers. So we learned that the police were on to all of this. And I think another funny thing about this, or not funny per se, but interesting thing, is that the whole time they were telling us they didn't have a suspect, they were on to him. They were on to him in November, late November. So I thought that was another interesting part of this.
Yeah, I agree, because that goes into more of the idea of motive, the motivation. What would have led someone to do this? What we didn't get from this affidavit very clearly is the why. Maybe we'll get that later on, but right now we just understand what led police to ultimately arrest Mr. Kohberger. Phil Waters and Jeanette Levy, thank you both so much for taking the time.
Thanks, Jesse.
And that's all we have for you here on Sidebar, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us. Please subscribe on our podcast.
Now with a breakdown of what police knew and when compared to what they were telling the public. Janelle?
Mark and Whitney, throughout this investigation, Moscow police held a lot of information close to their chest. In the affidavit documents released today, we learned Moscow PD may have been ready to catch a suspected killer in as early as 2 weeks following the crime. Moscow police discovered the bodies of Xana, Ethan, Maddie, and Kaylee in the afternoon on November 13th. Police confirmed the discovery launched a homicide investigation. Days later, autopsies revealed the 4 students were murdered. Police held their first press conference on November 16th, 3 days after the murders.
The reality is, I probably should have been standing here a day or so ago.
We know the murders occurred in the early morning hours of November 13th. But in Thursday's probable cause affidavit, we learned police obtained a knife sheath from the crime scene that same day. 2 more press conferences on November 20th and November 23rd. November 25th, MPD alerts local law enforcement to keep a lookout for a white Hyundai Elantra, a potential lead the public wouldn't know about until 12 days later. But it was on November 29th, just 4 days later, that Washington State Police would find a 2015 Elantra registered to Brian C. Kohberger, living in Pullman, Washington.
Just think one of the
December 6th
dumbest people
begins a
on
string
YouTube
of
and you'll figure it
pre-recorded
out.
interviews from Moscow Police Department leadership. December 7th, Moscow police asked the community to send in tips about white Hyundai Elantras made between 2011 and 2013. For 10 days, the police department continues to release pre-recorded interviews and ask the public for tips. The affidavit says on December 23rd, police used cell phone data to determine Kohberger's location during the murders, noting it goes off-network between 2:47 a.m. and 4:48 a.m., November 13th. December 28th, an Idaho state lab confirms DNA from Kohberger's family's trash can in Pennsylvania is a match with the DNA on the knife sheath left at the crime scene. Pennsylvania police say officers were sent to Kohberger's Pennsylvania residence late December 29th. That same day, Moscow Police Chief James Fry shared a pre-recorded interview saying crews would be cleaning out the King Road home. December 30th, Pennsylvania State Police arrest Kohberger. And hours later, Moscow police hold a press conference announcing a suspect has been arrested. The documents detailing evidence gathered against Kohberger was not released until his first Idaho court appearance, Thursday, January 5th. Time and time again for the last 2 months, Moscow police told the community they knew people wanted more immediate details and answers. And while we didn't have a lot of the key points in the internal investigation until today, it's possible keeping information as quiet as they did is what led to the successful arrest of suspect Brian Kohberger. In the newsroom, Janelle Finch, KREM 2 News.
Janelle Finch is joining us from the newsroom.
The reality is,
2015 Elantra white, noting it goes.
So one thing I want to say real fast is, yes, I get it. This is a lot. And after this probable cause affidavit, things are going to kind of come to a screeching halt. I said halt. Hilt. I had hilt on the line. Screeching halt. And everything's going to get slowed down. If you listen, by the way, go listen to the interview room with Billy Little. I mean, he explains it perfectly. I mean, this is going to take a long time to get through the court system. And I believe that they have enough to cook Burger's vegan ass, a tofu burger, from his death row cell. And, you know, I don't really wish him well. I really, you know, I'm sure we'll find out drips and drabs and things like that. But, you know, other than that, I don't think that we're going to, and nothing. That's what, oh, by the way, Mimi, I was wondering, is it close to the vest or chest? I don't know what it is. I'm trying to figure it out. Is it close to the vest or the chest? Randall Thomas says, why isn't anybody connecting Kaylee to Brian? She was at the club on the Washington State University campus. I saw the pic. I haven't seen that pic. Can you email me that? That would be cool. And Victoria, I got your email. Thank you so much. Be Botanical. What happened to Kate? What happened to Katie K? Did she is Katie K out of line? Yeah, she's so upset. It's okay, Katie. I know you're still watching. It's good to see you. Next time, come in here as Goldschlicker vodka or whatever that is. It's vest. Okay, I don't know. Close to the chest would work too, since the chest is on the vest. You know what I mean? Oh, this is a new one, Diane. Close to the best. Yeah, I think he's gonna claim innocent. Gonna be hard to pull that one off, though. That is for sure. Thank you for being here, guys.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not. Really? This to me.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
It is both.
But I have to put her on the side and worry about
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys and my kids.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not. Really? This to me.
6:30 tomorrow.
Rise, idiot.
I've done my best. It's hard, you know, that's real tough.
But I have to put her.
I was thinking like they should feed him. I've been thinking about it. Salisbury steak.
I'm gonna do what I gotta do for me and my boys
Covered in
and
like
my
meat
kids.
gravy with some elk.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
And he has to clean the elk
Live from the NBD
with a
Production
stupid
Studios,
knife that he has for
you're
no
in the
reason
lab with your host,
other than to kill
Joshua
people.
Diaz.
Piece of crap.
There is no investigation. This boy has.
There is not. Really? This to me.
Thank you, BC Pro. I appreciate that.
But I have to
Thank
put
you.
her on the side and worry about the boys.
Nah, I got a canoe.
But I have to.
There
Yeah.
is no investigation.
Don't say any F's and stuff.
Bloody undercooked chicken. That'd be sweet. Hot dogs for the rest of his life.
But I have to put her.
You want some hot
But I
dogs?
have to put her.
Brian, do you want some
on the
hot
side
dogs?
and worry about the boys.
He's a weirdo. And once again, I totally messed up the outro. Like I kept talking and talking and talking, and here I still am. I'm just sitting here. I was just sitting here talking. Oh yeah, never mind the countdown and you know, forget that. What's a countdown? Aren't you supposed to be off the air by now? Yeah. Well, what happened? Well, I ran a stop sign.
Suck-a-muck-a-gus.
And here we are again. Just
Rhinoceros.
being awkward. Whoops. Sorry for your eardrums. Yeah, I mean, now we got to wait for it to cycle back through. And, yeah, no, it's just whatever, dude. Don't worry, I'll save it.
Josh Birnbaum, step on up. Get on the scale, son. All right. Get off the scale.
Come here, I'm gonna eat you.
I'm bigger than you. I'm higher in the food chain. Get in my belly.